Hey everyone! So this is video number 2 in my series on Jordan Peterson's book 12 Rules for Life. In this video, I'm going to summarize chapter 2, which is about rule number 2, treat yourself like someone you are responsible for helping. So at the beginning of this chapter, Jordan Peterson asks this question: why don't we take better care of ourselves? And he mentions this statistic that on average, people are more likely to administer the proper drugs to their pets than they are to themselves. So it seems like we care more about our pets than we do about ourselves. And why is that? So Peterson starts us off in Genesis chapter 3. And in Genesis chapter 3, we're introduced to the Garden of Eden and the characters in this garden. Of course, there's Adam and Eve, and then there's also a snake. And the serpent is the one that persuades Eve and Adam to eat the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And so a lot of people might ask, why did God put a snake in the garden? Well, it's very representative of the fundamental elements of experienced reality, which is chaos and order. In every experience, there's always these two forces at work. It's that yin and yang symbol. There's the white side, which represents order, and then the black side, which represents chaos. But in each side, there's the dot of the opposite color. And that dot represents that there's always a potential for the other force to suddenly emerge, right? Even when everything appears calm and structured, all of a sudden chaos can ensue. And that's what this snake represents. That was why there was a snake in the garden. And God didn't want to create a garden where there was absolutely no threat and no danger, because what is the consequence of overprotecting our children? Is we end up raising children that aren't able to reach their full potential, because we cannot reach our potential unless we are challenged, right? And so I think God weighed the options and decided that the presence of the snake was the lesser of two evils, to train Adam and Eve and to give them a choice. And Jordan Peterson actually poses this question to parents. He says, do you want to make your children safe, or do you want to make them strong? Would you rather raise children who are competent or merely protected? But anyways, back to the fruit. When Adam and Eve ate of the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, their eyes opened and they became conscious. You might say that they became self-conscious for the first time, because the first thing they realize is their own nakedness. And then they hide and cover themselves with fig leaves, right? This is the first time that shame is introduced to humanity. And so the result of consciousness is a couple of things. The first thing is shame. And this is one of the reasons that Peterson presents as to why we don't take good care of ourselves, back to the question that we asked in the beginning. Because we are ashamed of ourselves. We want to punish ourselves because we're full of shame. That is what consciousness introduced to us. And the second thing that consciousness introduced to humankind was the capacity for good and evil. If you think about dogs and cats, they are predatory animals, right? They kill other animals for food, but you don't think of them as evil creatures because it's just in their nature. But humans are different. Humans actually have a capacity for cruelty because we are self-conscious and self-aware of what we do to inflict suffering on other humans. Because when we are self-conscious, we are aware of ourselves and our vulnerabilities and our nakedness and how our nakedness can be exploited. That means we also know how others can be exploited, and that becomes the entryway to true cruelty and evil. And so it is this capacity for good and evil that really makes us doubt our own self-worth sometimes, because we know the truly darkness that lives inside of us. So how can we start taking better care of ourselves? Well, first of all, we can't take care of ourselves properly unless we respect ourselves. Jordan Peterson mentions 2 ways that we can grow in self-respect, and the first one is stop playing the victim. Self-sacrifice is a virtue in many cultures. Jesus Christ was the ultimate example of self-sacrifice. But sacrificing ourselves to God, or to the highest good, so to speak, doesn't mean to suffer silently or willingly in the face of tyranny, because then you would just be supporting tyranny and you're allowing yourself to become a slave, and that's no good for anyone. When we talk about the golden rule, do unto others as you would have them do unto you, or even the second greatest commandment that Jesus mentioned, love your neighbor as yourself. Both of these are equations, right? Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. So both parties are powerful, not that one is dominant over the other. So when we talk about respecting ourselves, that means speaking up for yourself too. Loving and forgiving yourself, just as you would love and forgive someone else who is imperfect and stumbling. And the second thing is to recognize that you are important and you have a vital role to play in the world. And when you discover your meaning in life, you have a moral obligation to take care of yourself, to help yourself and be good to yourself. Friedrich Nietzsche wrote, "He whose life has a why can bear almost any how." So personally for me, when I was reading this chapter, what really stood out to me was when Peterson talked about free choice. Because of our consciousness, we have more choice to choose between good and evil than even Adam and Eve did. And that actually gives us more of an advantage than Adam and Eve because their goodness was bestowed on them, right? But our goodness is deserved and earned, and you could say is even more valuable and precious in the sight of God. And this actually increases our self-respect because we have more choice to decide to be good and challenge ourselves. So we have this choice to live between chaos and order, to live properly before God. And this allows us to overcome that shame which is within each of us innately because we are descendants of Adam. And it all starts with treating ourselves like someone we are responsible for helping. So yeah, thank you for watching this video. I hope it blessed you. Bye.